Hi, I'm Supervisor Don Knabe, and I'm pleased to welcome you back to another episode of Dialed In. As we previously discussed on the show, Los Angeles County is a major hub for one of the most heinous crimes imaginable, child sex trafficking. Girls, some as young as 10 years old, are being bought and sold on our streets for sex. Let me be absolutely clear. These kids are victims. There's simply no such thing as a child prostitute. It's been nearly 4 years since we dragged the child sex trafficking industry out from under the shadows and exposed it for the world to see. We've launched public awareness programs, trained thousands of county employees, and now we are helping the girls get the services that they need. This month, I'm pleased to introduce to you the judge who oversees a very specialized courtroom for these trafficking victims, one of our nonprofit service providers, as well as one of the leaders on the county sheriff's Human Trafficking Task Force. I hope you'll enjoy the show.
People think I'm trash, but they're wrong. Today I'm just an aluminum can, but one day I could be a stadium.
Welcome back to Dialed In. My first guest is the Honorable Judge Catherine Pratt. For the past 3 years, she has overseen a dedicated collaborative court that provides enhanced supervision and support to the victims of sexual exploitation. She's helped save countless lives and provided a path to a better future for our young victims and our young girls. Judge Pratt, welcome.
Thank you.
But first of all, let's start. I think the last time we talked, it was thank you for being with me, Commissioner Pratt.
Yes,
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
That recent appointment, we're all pretty excited about it.
Thank you, I am too.
And we're happy to have you. You have done so much for these young victims. So let's start with just, what is the STAR Court?
So STAR stands for Succeeding Through Achievement and Resilience. It's a specialized court in juvenile delinquency. It's based in the Compton Courthouse, and it was designed to work with girls who had been forced into commercial sexual exploitation, which a lot of people would think of as juvenile prostitution. We try to avoid that term because there's so many judgments involved with that. These girls have been forced to sell themselves on the street. It's a big gang business these days, and they need a lot of support to have other options in their lives.
So how did it start? I mean, STAR, you got the acronyms, everything's fine. I mean, was it your idea? Was it the advocate's idea or the defense attorney? How did this whole thing sort of come together? I mean, seeing it in action is just unbelievable. So maybe you can tell us how it sort of all came together.
When I first got appointed and asked to sit in juvenile delinquency in Compton, I thought I knew that what I was in for as far as the type of cases, and really, did have pretty much the cases that I expected. What I really didn't expect was the number of girls that were going to be in front of me having been arrested for prostitution. And I dealt with those cases for several years and found out that we really weren't making much progress with them. And at sometime around that time, a couple of other factors came in. One was that a girl that had already been on probation to me since she was age 13, and she had run away, and we didn't know where she was for a period of time. And when she got picked up and arrested again, she was picked up by 2 detectives from Long Beach PD. And they came into court with her and told me the story about what she had been through, that she'd been held hostage and that she was really seriously in danger. And they asked me to help keep her safe. And that was a real wake-up call to me about what kind of danger these kids were facing. And at about the same time, one of my judicial colleagues and a director at probation approached me about trying to start a specialized program. So those things coming together is what really kind of motivated the change.
So it was like law enforcement was involved in this as well too. And
yes,
there's that situation, even with your help and others, once they make that commitment to sort of get out, they become green lighted, as I understand it.
Yes.
And green lighted means death.
Yes, so like I said, this is a very much a gang-related issue, and that particular girl that law enforcement came to me on, they told me that they knew who her trafficker was, who her pimp was, but they didn't know where he was. They also knew that he had already been convicted of 2 strikes. So from their perspective, he would have no hesitation to kill her. And that is not unusual for some of these girls. When they try to get out of the life, the gangs put a green light out on them, and literally they are open for anyone to abuse, to kill, anything they want.
So up to this point then, it basically was that the story we hear all the time where the young girl goes in, the young victim, in front of a judge says, and the judge says, you don't really want to do that with the rest of your life. Go out and make something yourself, get a job, kind of a thing. And by the time they get out of the courtroom door and downstairs and out the glass doors, there's scumbag pimps waiting to pick them up again. So are there any other star courts in the county of Los Angeles?
No, not in the county of Los Angeles. There are a few that are being developed in other jurisdictions.
So how many cases do you handle at a time?
Right now I have about 130 girls that are being supervised under the Star Court. That's only part of my caseload. Over the past 4 years, we have supervised almost 500 girls.
Wow. So what triggers a kid to end up at the Star Court? Is it the simple act of being solicited out there in the street corner, or are there other ways that they enter your system?
At the beginning, it was focused on the girls who had been arrested for prostitution charges. But when the probation department started a good outreach program in the juvenile hall, we started getting disclosures from a lot of girls who were arrested for other crimes, but disclosed that sexual exploitation was an issue, was part of the reason why they were out on the streets. And so we now find that about half of the girls who are sexually exploited have been arrested for prostitution. About half have been arrested for something other than that.
And a lot of them are from our own system, correct? I mean,
Yes.
they're either, it could be foster kids or the probation kids, that kind of a thing, correct?
Absolutely. I think it's important to note that these are not kids from other countries. These are all American kids. They are born and raised in Southern California, LA, most of them. And most of them have had some ties with the child welfare system or Department of Children and Family Services at some point in their life before this becomes an issue.
So we've been making progress, and obviously we have a lot more to do, but can you share some success stories?
I was asked early on in this by my supervising judge how I was going to define success, and I rather sarcastically said that I felt like it was necessary to redefine success every day in order to achieve some. And what is really rather prophetic is I think that that's important for looking at these kids. You've got to define success on a case-by-case level. So I've had kids where we were celebrating their high school graduations, and you helped us do that last spring. We had a number of girls graduate from high school. It was a big occasion, and we really celebrated them. I have other girls where we celebrate the fact that she's stayed in placement for 2 or 3 days or 5 days, or that she comes back and asks for help.
So what does the future of the Star Court look like? I mean, are we going to be able to expand it? I mean, does the future look pretty good for it?
I think the future looks good. The county has done a good job of acknowledging this problem and really dedicating a lot of resources to it. So I am confident that something along the lines of the Star Court will continue. The sheriff and other law enforcement agencies have recently made a commitment not to arrest underage girls for prostitution. So it may be that the number of girls that I see does not grow, but what we're trying to do is to set up a similar court in the dependency court to work with these kids before they get on probation, before they get arrested, in the context of child welfare.
Well, all this time went very quickly, Judge, but I just personally want to thank you for all that you've done on behalf of these victims. This is the most horrific crime I've ever dealt with in my political career. I can't imagine. I have grandchildren these ages and things like that. And I will just tell you, from where it started to where it is, you should be a super judge, not just a regular judge. But from commission to judge, I just want to thank you for your efforts on behalf of these young girls. You've changed lives. You made a difference.
And your support has been absolutely critical to the whole thing.
Mine's the easy part. You've got the tough part. But thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to Dialed In. My next guest is Kim Biddle, founder and executive director of Saving Innocence, one of our incredible community nonprofit partners in the fight to end child sex trafficking. Working together with law enforcement, social service departments, and others, Saving Innocence is helping the young victims of sexual exploitation escape their life of hell on the streets. Thank you for joining me, Kim.
Thank you for having me.
So welcome. So sort of give us the background of Saving Innocence. How did it all start?
Wow. Well, you know, I was doing a lot of international work for years.
Now, you've been all over the world. I know that.
I've been to over 40 countries, primarily throughout Africa and Southeast Asia. I was really focused on working with street youth and HIV/AIDS and trafficking. And, you know, for a long time, I had...
What got you to those countries to begin with? I mean, were you on a mission from God or what?
Yeah. You know, I became a Christian when I was 19. And then all the things that I was afraid of, I think, before that, or like seemed like, you know, too far gone, all of a sudden became this like burden in my heart to go out there and to help and to be like part of the solution and part of the change. And so, you
just started traveling? Through a missionary or a mission work or what?
Was partnered with Saddleback Church down in Orange County and various other churches, Geneva Global, some nonprofits, to do like program development overseas to really help eradicate slavery and empower, you know, children, impoverished children in those areas.
So then you come back?
Yeah, so through that work, I just started asking that question, you know, what does this mean for the U.S.? Because a lot of the trafficking around the world was really driven by the Western man who was, you know, on these sex tours and paying for these services. And so it just...
And all of us uneducated always think that that's where it is,
right.
And it's not here.
Right, and that was the interesting thing. It was like the farthest out and like the least likely to be helped ended up being right here in our own communities. You know, these kids have sort of been hidden by our seemingly strong systems and strong government and, you know, land of opportunity, but yet we have impoverished children that are being just as exploited, taken advantage of, stolen, and coerced and forced into trafficking.
And the whole entitlement process that's supposed to help these young victims is the one that was protecting them and keeping them in the system, correct?
Yeah.
So how did you find Saving Innocence?
Yeah, so 2010, I sort of like, I like to say like against my will, started Saving Innocence, you know. I never thought I would start a business, or, you know, it wasn't really in my MO to do that, but I just couldn't help to do nothing. Once I saw the kids here, once I realized how rampant it was and that it was truly this epidemic, this great human rights crisis in our country, and no one was really focusing on that here at all. If people were aware of slavery in the world, they thought it happened, in India and Thailand and all
I'm one of those. I mean, that's what I thought until you know, my sheroes came to me from the probation department and all that. Yeah. So how do the young victims get to you?
Yeah, we have very strong partnerships in the county. We really believe in collaboration, empowering one another to do our jobs well. So most of our referrals come through either law enforcement, LA Sheriff, Long Beach PD, LAPD, or the probation department, or through the Superior Court.
So what about DCFS? Anybody?
Yeah, DCFS will refer. You know, we are always at capacity, unfortunately. So right now, we are prioritizing our law enforcement partners just because the kids that come through those referrals are the most in crisis. They're the ones that have just been rescued from the trafficking situation. They have nothing. They don't have clothes on their back. They don't have food. They don't have shelter. They don't have any kind of support system. About 70% of these kids were in the foster system before they were trafficked. So
I mean, that's the interesting thing about all this too. A lot of them are coming from our own system.
That's right.
So we'll be talking about on the show with Judge Pratt
Yep.
As part of the Star Court. Do you get referrals out of the Star Court?
Yeah, we do. We were actually the founding nonprofit that helped get the Star Court off the ground back in 2012.
Amazing.
Yeah, January 2012 was when that launched. And so it's been an amazing process with them to really partner with the lawyers at that court and Judge Pratt, who is just phenomenal with the girls. I mean, she goes above and beyond the care and love. I mean, celebrating their birthdays in court, and, you know, we do a lot of events together, and it's really special to work with government people to come alongside these kids and really work as, really what the systems were intended for, which is sort of co-parenting when these kids don't have any other parents to do that for
and
them.
survivors play a role in all this too. I mean, as it relates with your program, as it relates with our program, and we're using survivors to train. So maybe you can embellish on what survivors do in your situation.
I tell a survivor, coming out of such difficult circumstances, it's sometimes you don't realize what you have to give. I'm a survivor of various different abuses, and I will say, and for personal experience, that what you have overcome becomes tools to set other people free. And, once you're healed from something, you gain this authority and this ability to really understand and to say, hey, I did this, so can you.
And the impact is tremendous.
The impact is tremendous. So we really value our survivor involvement in everything that we do. And I say, you have a PhD in life. You've gone through more than most people, and so you are able to really bring a lot to the table.
I mean, I was describing, these victims have literally gone through hell, and they're on the way to heaven. And if they get to that point and survive, and
they're that bright light for others.
I've had the chance to interview and talk privately with survivors. In my wildest dream, I can't conceive of some of the things that they have gone through.
Which makes them the brightest, most resilient, strongest. If you come alongside and empower these survivors, they are able to accomplish anything because they've already overcome the impossible.
Absolutely. It isn't impossible because you talk about green lighting. Once they make that conscious decision to get out of that hellish life, it's not easy from that point. You just wish to say, well, here, let's flip this switch. I want out, so let me go talk to Kim Biddle and Saving Innocence, and I'll be on my way. Or let me talk to Judge.
It's a process.
It's a process because
long healing process.
There's a whole bunch of folks out there that don't want them to succeed.
That's right.
They want to keep them in hell.
And there's been a lot of folks in their upbringing, because these kids are foster kids.
Yeah, they can't go back home in cases.
They don't, they haven't heard that they're worth a lot. They haven't heard that they're valuable. They've never been shown that they should be treated with love and respect.
And that's the piece that the scumbag pimp uses. You're beautiful. You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. You want to be a star.
That's right.
So what does the future of Saving Innocence look like?
Well, we are very excited to continue these partnerships right here in LA County. We want to expand to the first responder protocols to be able to not only service some of the high trafficking areas, but county-wide and then the surrounding counties. A lot of these kids are trafficked across states, across county lines, down to San Diego, over to Vegas. So we really need to be able to expand our services to be able to help those children.
So we get a lot of requests from the public. I can be out talking about this and say, how can I help? How can I help? How can you just let the public know how they can help these young victims or help Saving Innocence or get involved with your program?
Yeah, we really need partners. This work is only possible through our donors and through those who come alongside and say, hey, we want to partner with you. Maybe we can't be the ones on the street doing the rescues with the law enforcement. We don't have the credentials to do that, but we want to enable these heroes to do that in the field. And so, becoming a monthly sponsor, a monthly partner with us, even if it's $20 a month to commit to that, really is helpful for us because then we can determine, okay, we're going to have this much amount of money and we can service this amount of kids. It helps us predict that.
My guess is you have a web page.
We do.
And what might that be?
Yeah, savinginnocence.org.
Okay.
And there's a lot of information on trafficking and the services that we provide and some of our kids' stories, and our kids love to blog and talk about their experiences, and it's we really try to keep the site focused on the milestones of the kids and just like the amazing progress we're doing right here in our city. So I really recommend for people to go in there, and they can go to the donate page.
Savinginnocence.org.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Wow. Kim Biddle, Saving Innocence, incredible program. We can't thank her enough for what she and her team do for these young victims out there. So, Kim, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure.
Take time out of your busy schedule. We'll be right back.
You!
No! Your fault.
My fault?
Your fault.
You're right.
What?
It's my fault. Maybe both of us.
Just the two of us. We can make it if we try.
Welcome back to Dialed In. My next guest is Captain Merrill Landenheim with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, who heads up the Human Trafficking Bureau. It was established under our new sheriff, Jim McDonald, and the Human Trafficking Bureau is a newly created office to specifically handle the child sex trafficking cases. Captain Landenheim serves on the Los Angeles County Human Trafficking Task Force. So thank you for joining me today, Captain. Appreciate you being here.
You're welcome, Supervisor.
So this task force is relatively new. Maybe you can sort of describe it for the folks out there.
Yes, previously human trafficking was handled under our Major Crimes Bureau. Sheriff Jim McDonald saw a need to expand it and expand services to our victims while focusing on traffickers and buyers, and the need exists. So he established an entire new bureau under Detective Division, staffed it, and we're moving forward with that task force to attack human trafficking in all its forms.
So have we or the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department ever had a human trafficking division?
Never before. It's a brand new concept, something Sheriff Jim McDonald stated that he would ensure gets investigated thoroughly. To do that, we needed an entire bureau and resources dedicated just to human trafficking.
I mean, it's so huge in multiple forms. So late last year, we came up with the protocols for law enforcement in their contact with the victims. Maybe you could walk us through that protocol, what goes on right now when law enforcement comes in contact with one of these young victims.
Yes, sir. That protocol was established in 3 pilot areas: the city of Long Beach, the city of Compton, and the city of Linwood. Compton and Linwood are policed by the Sheriff's Department. And that protocol, when first responders, law enforcement, contacted a commercially sexually exploited child, services were brought in, victim-centered services designed to serve our victim and take care of our victim and stabilize our victim. So the Department of Children and Family Services would respond, probation, and a social service provider to take care of that victim, walk them through the process, and stabilize them for 72 hours. Previously, there's been a very large distrust of law enforcement among this victim population. Bringing in our service community, our non-government organizations have helped break down those barriers and better enabled us to serve that population.
And part of that lack of trust, I mean, maybe you can share with the folks what happened previously.
So previously they'd come in contact with law enforcement, and all we'd know in our approach was detention. So we'd, after ensuring that their medical needs were assessed, we'd lock them up. And that we realized is not the best approach. These victims, we previously called them child prostitutes. There is no such thing. They're victims of child rape. And as such, we treat them as victims, we get them stabilized, and we avoid detention as often as possible. It's never our goal to arrest.
And I think that's the great thing about the new protocols, is just how they're treated. I mean, you said it, I say it, there's no such thing as a child prostitute, they're victims. But, you know, in a situation like this, obviously, the real victim, we need to get the wraparound services. You are also putting some emphasis on the scumbag pimps, going after them. The next step is the buyers, right? To work on the supply side of it.
Absolutely, sir. There's 3-prong approach to this. First is rescuing the victim and building in services. We were able to do that through a recently acquired Department of Justice $1.5 million grant, in which we partnered with our Coalition to Abolish Slavery and Trafficking, a non-government organization, to provide those services. The second piece of that is the trafficker. Absolutely, we have to work upstream and take these people into custody, or we'll never truly address this problem. And the third component that we don't want to ignore is the buyer. So we are doing supply-demand operations both on the street and online in the cyber arena, because that's where this crime has migrated, from the sidewalk to the cyber arena. So we're very aggressively addressing all 3 prongs of human trafficking.
And then you have the issue of gangs. It used to be, turning these poor young victims 6 or 8, 10 times a night is a lot easier and safer than, selling a gun or buying a bullet or selling drugs. Is that correct? I mean,
yes, sir, absolutely.
The gang piece of this has increased. Maybe you could give our folks an idea.
I'd say most of our traffickers are gang members, a majority of them. They're very well organized. When we lock one up, there's someone to come up in their place because of the profitability of this crime. When you sell narcotics, you sell a gun, that's a one-time transaction. When you're enslaving a girl for the purpose of sex, a child, that is renewable resource, and it's done daily. Over and over again daily. And also possession, and I call possession of these victims, is not a crime in and of itself unless they disclose to law enforcement, doesn't come to our attention. possession of narcotics or weapons obviously is a crime, and they're immediately detained. So this is a way for them, because there's such an intimidation factor. We have to reach our victims to come forward, and that can be a very challenging prospect.
And the standpoint, we talk about the green lighting. Once these victims make a conscious decision to get out of the system, they're green lighted. That's almost death. It's a very bad situation for them. So law enforcement does play a very significant role. What are the possibilities of the protocol piece being, going county-wide or expanding the efforts in other cities and communities?
Yes, well, with the board's support, we are very aggressively approaching a first responder rollout throughout the county of Los Angeles. So our next step, we've already met, and we already have timelines. We want to roll it out into the north part of the county, the Lancaster, Palmdale, Santa Clarita area. There's several human trafficking tracks going through that area, and we feel a need that area needs service.
That's on the way north too, right?
Yes, sir. So we have a county-wide plan for implementation. Law enforcement, as a first responder, we are already built to handle this issue. But our social service piece, Department of Children and Family Services, we can only go as fast in the first responder protocol as they can keep up. And that social service piece is key in that first responder protocol. So we do have a timetable for this. In a 2-year period, this will be rolled out throughout the county of Los Angeles and our affiliated law enforcement agencies.
So we've come a long way. I know that you and the sheriff and myself were part of the No Such Thing campaign, and it's had a cultural impact on the department itself, right? The deputies and how they treat and look, and the rest versus getting the victim services, correct? It's had a very positive impact with your troops.
Absolutely. It's a totally different way of looking at this victim population. Referring to these victims of child rape as child prostitutes really underscores what has occurred to them, and really minimizes the role of the trafficker as a child abuser and the buyer as a child rapist. And we are putting the focus back on them, back on the criminal element on this.
See something, say something, right?
Yes, sir.
See something, say something.
Absolutely. And
then you would recommend that if they see something, say something, to make a call to the office of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department.
Absolutely, yes, sir. And through the board's work with the MTA and awareness campaign, we are in the transit systems and throughout the county of Los Angeles.
Captain Merrill Landenheim, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, heading up the Victims Bureau for Child Sex Trafficking and Human Trafficking throughout. So I appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. Good luck to you in the task force, and look forward to working with you as we rescue these victims.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. Be right back.
No way. Hi. Hi. Shine, come on and let it shine. Hi.
Thank you again for tuning in to Dialed In. I want to thank my guests today, Judge Catherine Pratt, Kim Biddle, and Captain Merrill Landenheim for taking the time to join us. Our fight to eradicate child sex trafficking from our society is just beginning. We still have a lot of work to do to protect our girls and give them the tools that they need to be successful. We need to continue changing society's idea of what this crime is. It's not just happening over there in a third world country or over there in some underserved community. It's happening in every city, every community in Los Angeles County, in our state, and rural and urban areas across this country. We need to remind ourselves to not refer to these children as prostitutes or child prostitutes. They are victims, manipulated emotionally and physically into one hellish life. We need to wrap our arms around them and get them everything that they need to get on the road to recovery and the path to a better life. These children are our most vulnerable, and we need to do everything we can to protect them. Thank you again for tuning in to Dialed In. We'll be back next month with an all-new show.
You make me wear my bike helmet. Taught me never to run with scissors. And to follow the swimming rules.
You tell me to stay away from drugs.
to always buckle my seatbelt.
So why do you keep a loaded gun in your drawer?
How safe is that?
You asked them to follow some safety rules. Now they're asking you. In fact, they're counting on you. Never let your gun get into the wrong hands. Remember, always lock it up. Visit ncpc.org.
You! My fault?
Your fault.
You're right, it's my fault. Maybe both of us?
Just the two of us.